Lawrence O'Donnell, thank you, my friend. To that point about what happens at the end of the Democratic race, Bernie Sanders' bond with his supporters, the effect of the continuing Democratic primary on the overall prospects for the Democrats beating Donald Trump in November. There are two other things that we're watching tonight besides Kentucky, where we've already got a result. One, obviously, is Oregon. Oregon primary polls will close in just under 1 hour from now. But the other one is not Kentucky or Oregon. It is the most contentious story in all of presidential politics right now. And that is something we've referenced a number of times tonight. It's this rolling fight over what just happened in Nevada. Today, the Bernie Sanders campaign is responding to accusations that some of his supporters disrupted this weekend's state Democratic convention in Nevada over what they believed was an unfair, rigged process to select Nevada's delegates to the Democratic National Convention in Philly. Sanders supporters and the Sanders campaign contend that those Sanders folks were right to be mad. But whether or not that anger was justified, it did also result in Nevada's state party chairwoman, a woman named Roberta Lang, getting just bombarded with threatening and fairly vile phone calls and text messages and online posts after Bernie Sanders supporters publicized her personal contact information. Listen.
You stupid. What the hell are you doing? You fucking.
You are an awful person, and you suck, and you're a and I hope you suffer.
Hi, I was interested in your dictatorship. Just had a few questions regarding how I need to vote for the dictator in November, Hillary.
You're a fascist. Fascist.
Hi, Roberta Lane. This is a citizen of the United States of America, and I just wanted to let you know that I think people like you should be hung in a public execution to show this world that we won't stand for this sort of corruption.
We probably just guaranteed fires in Philadelphia. I'm not a psycho Bernie supporter, but there are some out there.
Today, Senator Sanders released a statement in which he condemned any threats or violence in conjunction with this Nevada convention this weekend. But that statement also pushed back really hard about how his supporters felt that they had been treated in Las Vegas, saying that at that Nevada convention, quote, the Democratic leadership used its power to prevent a fair and transparent process from taking place. That was not their allegation this weekend in the heat of the moment. That was today, as the Nevada Democratic Party and the Democratic Party more broadly continues to kind of tear itself up over what's happening there. What happened in Nevada is now a really big fight in the Democratic Party between the Sanders campaign and the Nevada Democrats, also the DNC. A lot of people are getting involved here, including Harry Reid, the dean of the Democrats in the Senate, who is, of course, the dean of the Democratic Party in Nevada. One question is whether this might also end up being a general election problem for Democrats. Nevada may be one of the most important swing states in the country this year. And this, what you're seeing right here, this is the shape the Democrats are in that state right now. Joining us now from Las Vegas is our friend John Ralston, who's the Dean of Nevada Political Correspondence and the host of Ralston Live. John, from what you can see close up about what happened at this convention, I know you were able to go to some of it this weekend. Does the national press, do we have an accurate view of what went down there and how big a deal it was?
Well, it was a pretty big deal, Rachel, and you know, beyond the allegations of people being cheated and chairs being thrown and violence, etc., the Sanders folks, or at least some of them, came to that convention with the intention, the explicit intention of disrupting that convention. They had already sued the state party over some arcane deadline changes that was quickly thrown out. Harry Reid talked to Bernie Sanders the night before, got Sanders to put out a unity statement, but that wasn't going to do any good. And so anyone who's been to any conventions knows they always argue about the rules. They call the chairperson of the convention a dictator because they don't get their way. But their behavior, Rachel, and this is a fairly small subset, I think, of the Sanders supporters, was really outrageous, even at any convention I had been. When Barbara Boxer announced that she was there to speak for Hillary Clinton, all the Sanders supporters immediately stood up. A lot of them started booing. They started screaming obscenities at her. They put their Bernie Sanders signs in front of cameras so Barbara Boxer would not be on the big screens in the hallway. There were thousands of people there. She essentially tried to joust with them, then cut her speech short. They were not cheated, Rachel. They just didn't do their job to get their delegates to that convention. And I'm sure it was very frustrating for them. But people seem to forget that Hillary Clinton won Nevada. She won it on February 20th decisively by more than 5 points. And what has happened since then is Sanders' people have tried to reverse that. They had some success at the county conventions, but they did not manage to fill hundreds of delegate slots at the state convention on the Las Vegas Strip. They lost. They didn't like losing, Rachel.
John, we're going to bring into the conversation in just a moment a Bernie Sanders delegate who was an organizer on the floor at Saturday's convention to get her perspective on it as well. But let me just ask you one clarifying point that about what you just said there about Barbara Boxer. The Sanders campaign today was pretty explicit about that. They said that Barbara Boxer was in effect asking for it, that her comments were condescending and incendiary, and she should have expected that kind of a response given what the content of her speech was. You're saying, having been in the room, that was not your perception.
Not at all. They started the booing and everything else before Barbara Boxer even started to speak. And what Barbara Boxer first tried to do was say, listen, if you're booing me, you're booing Bernie Sanders too, because Bernie Sanders and I are friends. We're close. They would have none of it. Obscenities were screamed. Barbara Boxer was not going after Bernie Sanders. She was there just to give the Hillary Clinton rah-rah speech, just as Nina Turner was there to give the rah-rah Bernie Sanders speech. Now, you know, Barbara Boxer, as all of you know, is a very feisty personality. She wasn't just going to sit there and take it, but she did not inflame those people. They were already inflamed.
John Ralston, stay with us for a little while, my friend. I appreciate you being here. I want to also bring into the conversation Angie Morelli. She's a Bernie Sanders delegate who was an organizer on the floor at Saturday's convention in Las Vegas. Ms. Morelli, I really appreciate you making time to be here tonight. I know this is a difficult subject and a difficult time. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that y'all reached out to the people who actually were on the other side of this, unlike our influencer, John Ralston, who is in the local, who has contact with us and had the opportunity to reach out to us and get the fair side of the story. And I appreciate the fact that you actually did that. Thank you.
So are you beefing with John Ralston that you haven't spoken to him before right now?
I mean, I like John Ralston. I think that he's an interesting guy, and I think that he had a unique opportunity knowing the exact people who were involved and as to what happened on Saturday. I sent him a press release as to what we put out, and he neglected to contact us and see what our side of the story was. So I still welcome him to, you know, have a conversation with us about it and try and see if we can clean up some of these politics and actually have the Democratic Party end up being a party of unity and inclusion. But until then, you know, the offer's out there.
Well, I will offer to pay the beer bill for both of you when all of this is over. But Angie, well, while we've got you here, obviously you've heard that there's been a lot of reaction nationwide to what happened this weekend in Nevada. The Nevada Democratic Party says that the Sanders supporters' reaction to what happened there was inappropriate. The Democratic National Committee has put out a statement of concern based on what they heard from the Nevada Democratic Party. Senator Sanders has put out multiple statements on this. Sari Reid has put out multiple statements on this. Do you think that things got out of hand this weekend and that the behavior at that convention was inappropriate?
I think that if we were to look at Saturday, Hillary Clinton did not win, Trump did. Because what happened was that you took half of the... This is what happened, is we had 4,000 of the most passionate people in this valley who got in a room together, and you put them in this confined space for 15 plus hours, and who had little access to food, and had 3 bars outside of the convention center that were put there specifically for us. And I don't know in what other situation where that wouldn't have created high emotions. I think that if you look at the videos, I have not seen a video of anybody throwing chairs at one person or another. I have seen a video of somebody picking up a chair and somebody on Team Bernie asking them to set it down and getting a hug from the person who had picked up the chair. So I think that a lot of the rhetoric behind the violent Bernie Sanders protesters here in Nevada is grossly over-exaggerated, especially considering the only assault I know of is the assault that took place on a Hillary supporter shoving me for trying to de-escalate her screaming at our volunteers for picking up ballots.
In terms of what happened here, I want to race to the end of the story and go to the last chapter in this book and find out whether the Democratic Party is actually in much worse shape come November in Nevada because of the acrimony between Sanders folks and Clinton folks, or whether this is, as you're sort of describing, essentially growing pains or the product of acrimony that was situational and that you're all eventually going to be pulling in the same direction in the end. Are these ties that are permanently broken now, or do you think Democrats end up stronger in the end for this?
Well, I think that having a conversation about whether this being Bernie Sanders folks or Hillary Clinton folks, you know, versus each other is the wrong conversation. We're looking at seeing proof that this is the people versus the establishment. After we got up on the stage and we motioned to them very respectfully to accept our, petitions that we'd spent a great amount of time collecting and had done in accordance with the rules of the convention, we had many Hillary Clinton folks come up to us and be like, what's in those petitions? They told us not to sign them. The Hillary Clinton campaign told them not to sign them. What's in them? And we explained to them what was in these petitions. It had nothing to do with the actual quote or with the actual results of what would have happened on Saturday. It had everything to do with just simply the procedures and allowing people to have their voices heard on the floor of that convention on Saturday. And once they realized what was actually in these petitions, they were on board with us. There was multiple Hillary Clinton people that went up to the front of the stage that were like, why are you not accepting these people's petitions? And they were not getting any answers. So I think that that's more of a concern that the Democratic Party here locally and nationally should be looking at is why are our voices not being heard? We went and we talked to the vice chair, Chris Wicker. And after the convention, I walked up to him and I was like, sir, can you explain to me what you would have done in this situation if you felt like your rights were being stolen and you were representing a grand amount of people and you felt like this is not a democratic process? He looked me square in the eyes in front of my lawyer and said this was not supposed to be a democratic process. And I think that that's the concern that we should be talking about. That our party keeps saying here locally that they're the party of unity and inclusion. I think that everything that they did on Saturday and preceding that, between the reason why we filed the lawsuit and the reason why we put out the original petition, is an anathema to including people into this political process.
Angie Morelli, Bernie Sanders delegate who was an organizer on the floor of Saturday's convention in Las Vegas. I'm glad we got your voice on the broadcast tonight. A lot has been said about what happened there. Hearing it from you is invaluable.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you being here tonight. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
John Ralston, I want to thank you as well for sticking with us in Las Vegas. And if you and Angie do, in fact, have a beer, I will pay for it, plus a really good tip.
I believe you. Yeah,
all right.
Thanks.
There's a deal. All right. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that from both of you. We may, in fact, later on tonight be hearing from the chair of the Democratic National Party, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, on this same issue as this Nevada blow-up has become an issue of national concern. We just heard there from that Sanders supporter, I think, was much more constructive than the way that this has been described by a lot of people who have been talking about this incident thus far. But we've got a lot more still to come tonight, including we're looking ahead at Oregon poll closing at the top of the next hour.